Hey YouTube, Casey here, and today for episode 4 of the MOC series, we have the Battle of Felucia, which I have been very excited to build because obviously I am a huge fan of Commander Bly, but also I just really like the colors and the plants and everything really interesting going on with Felucia. It just has such a crazy look, and I was really excited to build that out of Lego. Now, one thing I want to preface before we actually get into the build, if this is your first time tuning into the series, these figures are from Grandpa Clone Customs, and all the pauldrons and commas are from the Cape Cantina. And then one other thing that I want to mention is that this swamp speeder design that I have here is not actually my own, and I got it off of a rebrickable model. And it was made by Anthony07 on Rebrickable, and I'll link his page down below in the description, so if you want to build this for yourself, you can. He actually has free PDF instructions on his page to build this, so you can build it for entirely free if you have the pieces. But I guess we can go ahead and dive into this model specifically first, and then we can dive into the terrain and the plants and everything after that. Now, this Swamp Speeder model just looks so good, and what I like about it compared to the official Lego ones that we've gotten is that it's not too big like the 2010 one or some other ones that we've gotten, but it isn't too small like that 30-second battle pack one that we got with Captain Vaughn. I like the look of these front turrets a lot that use these really small bar pieces, and they're very posable. You can twist them side to side and up and down. On the inside, you have some printed pieces for controls, but then you also have some lever pieces for the characters to be able to drive it around. And then around back, I like the bulky dish pieces used for the back of the model that really gives off the look that it's supposed to. But other than that, this model just looks really good. I mean, there's not too much to it. It's not too complicated of a thing, only about 130 pieces, but it does what it's supposed to. Now, moving on to the full model, though, I really love just how I've made this with the colors and everything going on. I've done a lot of MOCs in the past that have been like Utapau and Saleucami, especially in this series. I did both of those. But I wanted to make sure that the terrain of this build just really stood out from those two, because I have used dark tan and olive green a little bit in the past now, so I wanted to try to change it up a little bit, and using this nougat color that you can see the 1x2 scattered around on the ground are just really makes it stand out, I think, from those models and gives it a really unique color scheme. And it makes it feel a little bit more colorful than it would be otherwise. I feel like it might be a little bit more boring without it. And it really looks like, I guess, clay or something more like that than just traditional dirt. Talking about how I've posed the figures around, there's not too much to say. I don't really have them in a battle or attacking. They're kind of just scouting around the forest down this pathway. But I have Commander Bly on the left with the guys on the Swamp Speeder, and then I have two guys coming around the other side on the right. The way I actually built the base of this is similar to how I built my base for the Utapau MOC. And what I did is I use a lot of those BrickHeadz headlight bricks, I guess if you want to call them that, which I love using this piece. This is one of my favorite pieces to use while MOC building, especially for terrain, because when you put them down on their sides, it allows you to build obviously on top like you want to, but then you can also build on the side, and so I'm allowed to get this nice border going around. And obviously, you know, the border, it isn't like a strict black border like the diorama sets or anything like that, but it allows like the terrain to look like it's kind of coming down, and like a chunk of terrain has been like grabbed out of the ground and you're looking at the MOC like that. And I just love that natural look a lot, and I think it looks really good here. But you can see here on the underside of it how I've used a lot of snot to be able to pull this off. And if you don't know, snot is studs knot on top. It's like a technique that people use in MOC building. But looking at some of these smaller plants that I've scattered around here, I do like the olive pieces that I've used. And, you know, I have these stems that I've used on my Saleucami MOC before, but then I also have these 3 like leaf pieces. One of my favorite techniques that I used here isn't actually based off any specific plant from Felucia. I took a little bit of some creative liberties here, but I used these Ninjago movie, like, what are they, like jellyfish, I guess, heads for some of the bad guys, and I used them as some sort of alien plant that would be around Felucia on the ground, and I think that looks really cool and just makes it look a little more diverse and adds a lot of, you know, different variety, I guess, in the plants that you see here. Other than that, though, there are some smaller orange plants on Felucia that kind of look like small vines, and I didn't really have a lot of pieces to be able to make them like skinny and thin, but I did use some of these orange leaf pieces to kind of imitate like a similar look. Some pieces that aren't the most interesting here, but are like pretty nice, I guess, for detailing are these palm tree leaf pieces. And I threw these in so that the jungle could look a little bit more dense. Obviously, like I have the pathway in the front, and this isn't like too huge of a mock, and so I was working with a smaller space, so I couldn't make this look like crazy dense or anything. But I do think for what the space is with what we're working with here, that they do help out a lot. But other than that, the two big plants I did actually base off of actual ones from Felucia, and I looked at stuff like Battlefront 2 at the Felucia map to help me with this. And obviously Revenge of the Sith itself as well. But there's these big like white and brown plants that they're kind of like white balls, and then they have brown layers in between them. And so I imitated that here, as you can see with this plant. And I actually have 3 of them kind of growing close to each other here. And it doesn't use any crazy techniques other than how I actually put it on the base. I wanted it to be built upside down, but I didn't have any of those 1x1 stamp pieces on me that I could kind of use to attach them to the base. And so I ended up just attaching them to a plate and putting that plate studs down on the base. Which I'm in college right now, so I kind of got to work with what I have, but I actually think this came out really well. And it doesn't look weird or anything from the front, and that's how you're going to be looking at it anyways. But anyway, one of the things I'm most excited to talk about here is how I've made this big blue plant. And while I wouldn't say Felucia is like a well-known planet within Star Wars or anything, I feel like this big blue plant is one of the most like well-known kind of biggest features of the planet. And as you can see, I ended up using a brick separator, which I think is really cool. It's a really good like parts usage, but it actually looks pretty accurate to how it does in the movie. Just being an orange stem that kind of sticks out of the center of the plant. But other than that, this blue plant was probably the hardest part for me to build of this mock, because I had to come up with a way to have these different layers, or not layers, but you know, you kind of have to have that cone shape. And so I did end up like stacking layers on top of each other in order to create that. And so as you can see, as I'm dismantling the plant, you can kind of see, I don't know how to describe it too well, but you can see how I've stacked like each of these together in order to create that shape. But yeah, this was just really tricky, and it took me a while to be able to figure out how to do this, but I am happy with how it came out. And that turquoise color is just so nice, and I love how it looks on the build. But that's about all I really have to say about the build, so let me know what y'all want to see next in this series. I'm thinking about doing either Megiddo or Kashyyyk. But the one problem with doing Kashyyyk is I want to be able to do it with 41st Elite Scouts, but I don't want to use the 2019 ones. I'd like to have them in the 2020 kind of style of figure. But I haven't seen anyone really do those as customs, which I would really love to have. And so I am thinking about doing Megiddo for now, and I can have, you know, the Crosshair Bricks Commander Bakara that I have, some of the new Galactic Marines figures, which I'll have to buy off of Bricklink, and maybe like a Tri-Droid or something like that they'd be attacking, but we'll have to see what I do with that. But if y'all have any ideas for that Megiddo mock, then let me know down in the comments. But with that all said, remember that Christ is King, and may the Force be with you.